Part 29. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 281. What's the matter? Fang Dalan happened to come to the kitchen to look for his mother, and when he heard the last sentence, he couldn't help saying, "Mother, that kid is just coaxing you, don't take the injury seriously. In fact, there is nothing, both neither the bones nor the internal organs were injured, and the bruising disappeared after a while. Fang Dalan is a big boy, and now he is a good goat slaughterer. Not only does he want to kill sheep, he also has to catch sheep. Of course, because his father is still young and strong, his main task now is to catch sheep, so he is often injured. The more you get hurt, the more experience you have." Just now, Thursday Lang was pulling clothes in the yard and Bo sympathized with him. He also saw it. To be honest, he just glanced at it and knew that the injury was not serious at all. Serious injuries, generally cannot come out from the old doctor's house. But obviously Fang's mother didn't think so. She banged Fang Dalan with disgust, and said, "Can Chilang be the same as you? Look at his body. If it really breaks, who will your little sister rely on in the future?" Fang Dalan, "Mother, am I your son?" Fang's mother ignored him. When Fang Dalan returned to the house, he saw his wife walking out with the medicinal wine. When he saw him, he hurriedly gave him the medicinal wine and said, "Quick, I just found it, and sent it to my brother-in-law, and asked the little sister to wipe him off. God will be fine." Fang Dalan, "Just a little injury. Where is it small? I saw it just now. It's a big piece of green. I don't know how painful it is. You can send it quickly." Fang Dalan had luck, and once again felt that there was really so much to gain by looking good. You must know that from the beginning he didn't think much of Shiro last week. Not only because I think the Zhou family is not worthy of the Fang family, but the most important thing is that Thursday Lang is a gangster, and he is also a gangster with a bad reputation. But just because he looked good, his little sister fell in love with him, and just because he looked good, his mother agreed. Fang Dalan looked at the medicinal wine in Mrs. Fang's hand, lucked out, and finally took it and sent it to Shiro Lang. Thursday Lang's injury is much heavier than Man Bao's. The most important thing is that Man Bao's hand has been replaced, and it doesn't hurt much now. Kura's injury was at its worst. So he was lying on the bed, he couldn't help groaning in pain, and he just talked to Man Bao, "Tell me about you, you can fall off the bed when you sleep alone, can't you take care of yourself? Like me, I will only fall out of bed when the old 5 and the 6 sleep too domineeringly and kick me with their feet." Man Bao was thinking about the bottle of medicinal wine. Of course, except for the smell of wine and medicine, she didn't smell anything. She was just a little regretful. "I won't be able to wipe the medicinal wine for you until tomorrow, fourth brother, are you in pain?" Thursday Lang snorted twice, but the pain was still within his tolerance. Thinking about it carefully, it doesn't seem to be that painful. I remember that the meal he was beaten by his father because of gambling was even more painful. And he couldn't lie down at that time, but the next day he was going to carry a hoe to the ground. Thinking of this, Thuro was satisfied, and simply lay on the bed and fell asleep. When Fang Dalan came over, Thursday was already lying on his pillow and fell asleep, and Manbao opened the door for him. Fang Dalan looked down at the soft and round Manbao, his voice was an octave lower, he glanced at the room, handed the medicinal wine to Manbao, and whispered, "This is for your fourth brother, give it to him, rub it on, and it should be fine in 2 days." Manbao did not refuse, and after taking it, he smiled brightly at him, "Thank you, brother Fang." Fang Dalan, "No thanks. What if you want a daughter?" At this time, Mrs. Fang was also whispering to Mrs. Fang, "The old doctor said that the days are not long, so I can't diagnose it. Let me come back in half a month." Fang's mother was refreshed. "The old doctor said that, it means that you are inseparable, and it has been at least a month since you were pregnant, right? Fang Shi blushed and nodded. Fang's mother was happy. Okay, then I'm going to be a grandmother again. After speaking, I felt a little regretful, and said in a low voice, your sister-in-law has not been pregnant yet. Ms. Fang said, it didn't take long for my sister-in-law to enter the door. Don't worry, mother. How could there be no hurry? It has been more than a year since I entered the door. But this is not in a hurry now. What is more urgent is, the wheat in our field has turned yellow. Your father thinks that he will start the sickle in 2 days, and your in-law's side will soon open the sickle, right? Mr. Fang gave a hum and said, it's just this period of time. Then you have to ask Shiro to tell your mother-in-law that you have a short life and can't do too heavy work. Fang Shi smiled and said, Mother, I know that my mother-in-law never let us do heavy work. It's okay to work like cutting wheat. Fang mother also thought about it, how can people in the countryside have a complete rest? But she still warned her again, don't take my words to heart, you must tell your mother-in-law and listen to your mother-in-law. Fang Shi was a little hesitant. If this kind of thing is not certain, she will tell her mother-in-law. If it is not true, what will you do then? The doctor didn't dare to say anything certain, and of course she didn't dare to say such a thing. Fang's mother taught her, let Shiro speak. Fang Shi nodded hesitantly. As a result, without waiting for their husband and wife to hint to her mother-in-law, Man Bao told Qian Shi everything was bald. Because he thought that Man Bao had to go back to school early in the morning, he got up as soon as dawn on Thursday and led the two of them home without breakfast. As soon as Man Bao got home, he went into the room to find his parents. When old Zhutu and Qian Shi saw how excited she was, they knew that she was fine, and they greeted her with a normal expression. Then old Zhutu went out with his hands behind his back and gave their mother's room to whisper. Qian Shi smiled and called her to his side, and asked, what did the doctor say? Man Bao explained yesterday's doctor's diagnosis one by one, including the old doctor's diagnosis of Shi Zuolang and Fang Shi. Mother, the fourth sister-in-law is also pregnant, so don't I want to add 2 nephews this year? Qian Shi smiled and said, your fourth sister-in-law will have to wait until next year to give birth, but this is also a good thing. Adding a baby to your family is a big deal. Why don't you buy some meat when you come back today? The fourth brother said that it was money given by his mother, so he shouldn't spend it indiscriminately, or he would be charged by his mother again. Nonsense, Qian said with an angry smile, is mother like that? Did he do something bad outside? Man Bao was refreshed, and immediately told the story of Thursday night in Fang's yard to sow discord in the Fang's yard. Qian Shi had anticipated it long ago, shook his head and said, the fourth child's temper is never willing to suffer. But that's fine. It's better than directly carrying a hoe to fight someone. Hey, mother, are you not angry? I'm not angry, what am I angry about? As long as your fourth brother doesn't go to fight with someone directly, or spread rumors to cause trouble, I'm not angry. Man Bao thought about it. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 282. Old Zhutu looked at the wheat in the field and found that it was not yellow enough. After estimating the time, he said, the sickle can be opened in 3 or 4 days. Upon hearing this on Thursday, Lang couldn't care less about lying on the bed and recovering from his injuries. At the beginning of the summer harvest, it is estimated that he will be busy for 2 consecutive months. Although he went to Dali village to sow discord, the old Jiao family will not suffer any substantial harm at present. His injuries were not in vain. The cautious Thursday Lang held his waist and was about to go to Dali village to join in the fun. Man Bao couldn't help but said, fourth brother, you won't be afraid of being beaten if you go again? That's someone else's territory. Thursday Lang hummed, what am I afraid of? Your fourth sister-in-law's house is also there. But the Jiao family has many brothers, and the fourth sister-in-law has only one brother. Man Bao, who had 6 brothers since childhood, so no one dared to bully her, knew the tricks and said, "You were beaten, and you are so far away, but it can't save you." Thuro hesitated. Man Bao laughed, "Fourth brother, everyone who has been famous through the ages must be able to bend and stretch. There is a sentence in the book called A Gentleman's Revenge, 10 years are not too late, why do you have to rush to take revenge today?" Zhou Lang was so shocked that his eyes widened. "No, it will take 10 years. I won't be able to remember this revenge in 10 years. How can I avenge it?" Man Bao thought about it too. 10 years seemed too long, but you can't send it to your door to find a fight, aren't you looking for a draw? He's just looking for smoke. Mr. Fang on the side couldn't help but said, "It's all idle, his parents feel bad for him and don't ask him to go out to work, but he was just lying in bed for a long time and then shouted boredom. When he was busy in the past he's lazy again, and now he's given a rest, and he's thinking about stirring up the storm again, what's this, not just trolling?" Thursday Lang hummed and didn't say a word. It was because he had to lie down at home to rest that he felt that his butt and back seemed to be hurting more and more, and he couldn't swallow the breath more and more. However, Man Bao didn't really want his brother to have another conflict with outsiders. It would be fine to stir up differences, but it would be bad if they fought. Although she had never seen them fighting with people from other villages, she knew from the last time they fought with those 3 bad guys, it should be similar. The eldest brother was injured so badly last time, and the second brother, the third brother, and the fourth brother were also beaten badly, so it's better not to fight. It hurts, costs money, and delays working hours. Man Bao felt that there could be other gentler ways to take revenge. For example, the more the other party didn't want them to do something, the more they wanted to do it. Then the question goes back to the beginning, why did they chase Shura and the others? Not because they can make money from the mountains. Man Bao rolled his eyes and said, "Fourth brother, let's go to the mountains to find wild mushrooms and find all the mushrooms in their mountains. It didn't rain yesterday, and it didn't rain today. How could there be mushrooms? It wouldn't be delicious if there were. Then let's find Poria." Thursday Lang was refreshed and asked, "Are you really sure that the tuckahoe grows on the pine stumps? The 5th and I have turned over all the pine stumps in the mountains, and we haven't seen a single one." "Uncertain." Thura. "However, most of the guild members grow under the roots of pine trees. Although the entry in the encyclopedia has not yet come out, Man Bao has rummaged through the books in the Bai family's study, and also asked Mr. Zhuang. Poria is the essence of the pine tree. Since it is the essence of the pine tree, it means that they picked it under the pine tree, so Man Bao decided not to look in the pine stump this time, but in the pine forest. And she has Keek to help. Keek's scanning of plants is particularly powerful, especially since it has already recorded Poria, and the data contains Poria data. Scan it, 100 meters in a radius, ahem, although it is much worse than 100 miles in a radius, it's still better than their eyes, isn't it? In the woods, they can see the place in front of them. Just as Man Bao just came back from school, she glanced outside and said, "Fourth brother, let's go now, and then let my sister-in-law leave the dinner for us to come back later." Thuro didn't have any objections, but, "Have you finished your homework? This is a big deal. If parents know that he takes Man Bao, who has not finished his homework, out to play, they will definitely beat him." Man Bao said, "Mr. is very good today, there is no assignment to write, just let us endorse it." Man Bao said confidently, "I can endorse it when I come back at night. Mother doesn't let you read under the oil lamp, it hurts your eyes, and Dad is so stingy, he must be reluctant to light the oil lamp." Man Bao said, "It doesn't matter, I can already memorize it, but I'm not familiar with it, so I don't need to read books. The big deal is to stuff the book into Keek and read it inside." Thuro was persuaded. So he stopped lying on his stomach, just got up and walked out with Man Bao. All the family members went out, and some went to the paddy fields to release water, and after draining all the water in the fields, the rice could be harvested in about 20 days. Some went to Zioan to serve the dishes there, while others went to turn over the compost heap. Now their compost pile is ready, just waiting for it to ferment and rot. Fearing that the temperature will be too high, they will turn it over after a while. On the other hand, Wu Lang, who was younger, took a bunch of people to the field to catch insects for the chickens to eat. Before, due to the flood, there were many insects in the fields. Because there were many chickens at home and there were enough people, Qian simply asked them to collect all the insects they caught. All the chickens can eat are eaten by them. If they can't eat them temporarily, they are boiled with water, then dried and put away. During this time, they are taken out one after another and accompanied by the leaves for the chickens to eat. The effect is not bad, at least most of the hens maintain the trend of laying one egg a day. But no matter how many worms and so many chickens, they will be eaten in about 10 days, so the daily activities of catching worms have resumed at home. Catching insects in the crops under the sun is not a good experience. At least Chuolang didn't want to go, so as soon as his father let him rest at home, he immediately pretended to be dead, and would rather risk the danger to go to the next door Dali village to sow discord. And do not want to do this light work. But now he's alive and kicking again. The two brothers and sisters didn't call anyone else. One carried a basket and the other carried a hoe to the entrance of the village. Man Bao took his cloth bag and a bamboo tube of water. Of course, the water was placed in the back basket of Shi Zuolang. Chu Yulang put the hoe on his left shoulder, his right hand tightly grabbed Man Bao's hand, and repeatedly urged, "You have to follow me, don't run around, you know? Like last time. Last time you ran around and lost me. Okay, but no matter what happens, you are not allowed to run around. If we get separated, you just squat and wait for me, you know. What if the wolf came? The wolves of the fart are here." Thursday Lang couldn't help but say, "How can there be wolves in the mountains?" You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 283. Didn't you say there are wolves in the mountains? Thursday Lang pretended to be confused. Yes, there are wolves in the mountains, but not necessarily in the mountains. The trees there are not very dense. The wolves may not like to go there, but there are a lot of bees. Be careful not to touch the honeycomb and get stung, it's miserable. Mr. Fang didn't join in the fun. He stood at the door and watched them go away, one big and one small, and then went back to the kitchen to work. Today it's her turn to make dinner. When Shizalang and Manbeo walked to the foot of the mountains, the surroundings were silent, except for the chirping of birds and insects, and when they looked up, there was no one there. Of course there is no one left, and it will be time for dinner in a short time. At this time, people are either busy in the crops or go home and wait to eat. Who is idle and has nothing to go to the mountains? It is not the need for firewood in the winter. Man Bao looked up and saw all the trees, so she asked, "Fourth brother, where did you find it before?" The other end, the one close to Dali village, Chu Yulang curled his lips and said, "The Jia brothers are too careless. They basically aim at the wood and pine trees in one place, and follow them from their side to this side. Cut down, so the pine stumps are on their end. Fortunately, the charcoal is not burned until the end of the fall. Otherwise, if they burn all year round, how much wood is there in this mountain for them to burn?" Shiro asked her, "Where do you think we should start looking?" "Here," Man Bao said, pointing to the forest in front of him. "Since there are no tree stumps here, and the trees are dense, I guess the fourth and fifth brothers must have never looked for them." Thursday Lang nodded approvingly. "Yes, we haven't looked for it. How did you know? You are so lazy. How could you walk through such a dense forest to find Poria?" Thura. He got angry and decided to ignore her for a quarter of an hour. So Thuro let go of her hand and took the hoe to make way ahead. Manbao followed his ass into the mountain. Coco. Don't worry, host, I have already started scanning. If I find poria, or other plants that have not been included, I will tell you. Manbao happily responded, as long as it's something I haven't recorded, you have to tell me. Coco responds. The scanning of a radius of 100 meters is not blown. When Chu Yolang entered the empty spot inside, he would turn over the pine trees one by one, while Manbao walked around with his head sticking out, without taking much rest. As a result, Shiro didn't dare to look too carefully, for fear that if he lowered his head and raised his head again, the child would disappear. He couldn't help complaining, "You are slow, can you find it this way?" "Yes," Manbao insisted, "my eyesight is good." Thursday Lang said angrily, "My eyes are also good." "Host, in front of you, count the fifth tree forward." Manbao paused for a moment, his eyes brightened slightly, and then he flew there without concealment. Keek couldn't stop it in time, so he could only reluctantly add after the event, "Host, you're pretending to be dressed up anyway, it's too obvious, what if it arouses suspicion?" "Oh, I'll pay attention next time," Manbao replied in his heart, ran to the fifth tree, and turned around but didn't see it. "Keek, the one behind your butt, that's the front left." Manbao turned around happily, and saw a black-brown thing that was exposed by propping up the dead leaves. He stretched out his hand to push the leaves away, and more parts were exposed. Thursday Lang also ran after him, and at a glance he saw what Manbao had pulled away from the fallen leaves, and he exclaimed incredulously, "No, Manbao, your eyes are so powerful, you are so far apart, and can you see if the tree is blocking it?" Manbao raised his neck proudly and said, "Of course, my eyes are very powerful." Chu Yolang would not doubt at all, he glanced at Manbao's eyes enviously, and finally said with certainty, "It must be because you eat a lot of eggs. I heard that chickens' eyes are also very powerful, no matter how small the insects are on the ground, how finely shredded rice can sting." Manbao asked suspiciously, "Is that so?" Thursday Lang affirmed, "It must be like this." He was still squatting in front of Manbao, looked at her eyes, and affirmed, "Look, our eyes are the most similar, I'm not as good as you, it must be because the food is different, you are young at least one egg a day, so it must be because of eating eggs." Thursday Lang's eyes lit up, and he vowed, "I must earn more money, and when my son is born, I will also give him an egg every day." Then what if his eyes don't look like ours, like the fourth sister-in-law? This is a big problem. Shu Yolang thought about it seriously, and hesitated. One more. Keek was about to stop listening, and it reminded weakly, "Host, hurry up and dig. After digging, we can go to another place to take a look." Of course, it was impossible for Manbao to do this kind of digging. Shiro was no longer in pain or tired. He pushed Manbao aside, put down the basket, raised his hoe and started digging. After digging deep enough, Manbao helped to break up the mud, and then carefully took out the tuckahoe underneath. Keek instructed, "Host, collect some more soil. You don't need to hold it up. Just put your hand in the soil, and I'll watch the collection." Manbao felt that this method was good, and happily buried his hands in the soil. Shiro, who was digging for tuckahoe, just glanced at it and didn't look at it, just pretending that Manbao was playing with mud. This tuckahoe is not very big, at least not as big as the two they dug before, but it is not light either. Chu Yolang weighed it in his hands and said uncertainly, 2 caddies. Manbao didn't lift his head, "You're not the second brother, don't learn to weigh." "All right." Shu Yolang turned around and put the tuckahoe in the back basket. Manbao took the opportunity to get down and touch the dirt at the bottom, and put a wave into the system. The two brothers and sisters buried the soil back, and Thursday Lang stepped on it, and said with a refreshing voice, "Go, let's go and look for it again." Thursday Lang felt that Man Bao's luck was very good, so he waved his hand generously. "Man Bao, we will go wherever you say we are going." Man Bao, of course, listened to Keek. Keek said, "Host, there is a wild mushroom in the grass not far from you. It is the umbrella mushroom that has been recorded. Do you want it?" The voice just fell, and Man Bao had already stepped forward to clear the grass. Thursday Lang also glanced at it and said happily, "Straw mushrooms, this kind of mushrooms are the favorite food of the people in the city." Man Bao swallowed and said, "I also like to eat." Thursday Lang had already dropped his hoe and put down the basket to pick it up. He picked it up and handed it to Man Bao, who put it in the back basket, and Thursday Lang instructed, "Put it away, don't break it, and ask the second brother to take it to the county town to sell it tomorrow morning. This straw mushroom can be sold for 30 cents per centerjin, it's better than what we usually find." Man Bao said, "This isn't a straw mushroom, it's called an umbrella mushroom, and it's also called a cockroach mushroom. This one that grows in the grass is not called a straw mushroom, it can be called a mushroom," said Shiro Lang, who didn't care much. "It's because you have a lot of studies and personnel, so you have to call one type of mushroom one type of name. How can we remember that?" More. The edible ones are called mushrooms, the ones in the long grass are called straw mushrooms, and the poisonous ones are called poisonous mushrooms. Man Bao thought about it for a while, and actually felt that what the fourth brother said made sense. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 284. Man Bao squatted at the edge and was in charge of picking up the mushrooms handed out by Shiro, because he had to accumulate enough before handing them out, and Man Bao couldn't help but get bored. She just stared at the grass and dirt on the ground, and when she looked at it, she couldn't help but glance at the fourth brother. With his back to her on Thursday, Man Bao dug up a handful of mud with his hands and stuffed it into the system. Keek also cooperated very well. As long as Man Bao dug up, it would accept it. The system space was instantly stuffed with lumps of separate mud. Chu Lang picked all the straw mushrooms in the innermost part, and walked out without having to pick them up. "I put it carefully in the bag myself." Today's start was extremely smooth, and Thursday Lang was very happy, so he waved his hand and said, "Let's go, let's keep looking." Man Bao also followed ambitiously, and Keek dutifully scanned. Just going up the mountain, Man Bao has never been to such a far mountain, because she is young and has no reason, at most she can only wander around the mountains near the entrance of the village. The mountains are mostly pine trees, and the environment is still somewhat different from the mountains near the entrance of the village. Therefore, there are always some plants that slip through the net and are not collected by Man Bao. Some of them have samples in the encyclopedia, that is, they will not be extinct in the future, some are already extinct, but more are that the plants that exist in the future are different from the present, or varieties, or branches. The conditions for the encyclopedia to verify the points are very complex. The scarcity is one, its function is one, and its importance to the future development of biotechnology is even more important. Another point is viewing. For example, the wildflowers that Man Bao was keen to collect at the beginning, there are some wildflowers that have become extinct. It has no special function and biological value, but after the collection, there are many points because it has a lot of ornamental value. And that kind of plants can also bring a steady stream of click points to Man Bao. As long as someone clicks, she can earn points. In the beginning, Man Bao didn't really care about those points, because there were very few points. She might only get a few points after 100 clicks, but as more and more plants are included, this is a considerable amount of income. Man Bao has long discovered that even if she does not enter plants for a long time, she still earns points every day, all of which come from clicks. Man Bao paid special attention to this, and found that flowers and plants are the most popular, such as the wisteria and azalea that she included. The second is the plants with medicinal value, such as privet, yam, and so on that she has included. Even the hits for all kinds of mushrooms are good. But what surprised Manbao the most was that the clicks on poisonous mushrooms were also increasing rapidly recently, even surpassing the clicks on flowers for a time. Therefore, Manbao is very keen to find poisonous mushrooms that she has not recorded. Unfortunately not. After digging 2 grasses in a row, a vine tree full of treasures straightened up sadly. Even if the beautiful wildflowers are not found, why not even a medicinal herb? If there are no medicinal materials, at least there is a poisonous thing, right? Manbao felt that the reason why the poisonous mushroom is popular must not be because of the word mushroom, but because of the poison. Because the other mushroom clicks she's included are pretty common. Shiro also straightened up sadly, and handed over a rattan tree to Manbao. In order to make it easier for her to take it, he cruelly pinched all the rattan on it, leaving only a piece of rattan with some rhizomes. Give her. He couldn't understand, can this thing be sold? Manbao shook his head. Then why do you have to dig them? Shu Youlang was curious for a long time. Tell me about you. You have liked to pull flowers and grass since you were a child. You dig the dog's tail grass, you pull the cauliflower, and you don't let go of the wild flowers and weeds on the mountain. Manbao thought for a while and said, because I like flowers and plants. This is not the first time Manbao has said this, but Thuro has never heard it so seriously. He thought about it carefully, and said, no, maybe you have a relationship with these flowers and plants. By the way, are you a wood of the 5 elements? It must be like this. When the 4th brother will take you to the Taoist temple for calculation, I will tell you, you can find privet, yam, and tuckahoe. Maybe you are really a wood elf, maybe you were a wood fairy in your previous life. Manbao was amazed, and Muxian? I've only heard of Waxian. Since flowers have immortals, wood also has immortals. This flower fairy only cares about flowers, but these flowers also belong to wood, and wood immortals are definitely more powerful than flower immortals. But I think Waxian sounds better. What's the use of listening well? It's good to have great abilities, such as the names of our father and uncle. Shu Youlang paused when he said this, and finally, in Manbao's eyes, bit the bullet and continued, our father's name is Jin, my uncle's name is Yin. Do you think gold sounds better than silver? Manbao nodded hesitantly. She felt the same, it was all money. On Thursday, Lang said, right, you think so too, but my uncle is much better than our father, so it's useless to have a good name. Keek wanted to find the joke on his face, but after a long time, he found that he seemed to be serious. Host, are you serious too? Who knew that? Manbao asked it back. Keek, was I a real wood fairy in my previous life, so that's why I'm so smart? Keek, no, you can't be a fairy even if you're a fairy, because the things you found were actually scanned by me. But facing a child under 7 years old, Keek could only be silent. Manbao didn't hear Keek's answer, so he took it as a default, and became excited. 4th brother, I think you're right. With a small wave of her hand, she strode forward. Let's go, continue to look for Poria. She didn't give Keek the plants in her hand, because there was no chance. Manbao, who has been trained many times by Keek, knows that even in the face of his parents, he has to avoid when collecting and taking things. The two also walked around the mountainside, and they couldn't go up the mountain. After walking for a long time, Manbao stopped when Shiro was hesitating whether to go home first. Then he saw Manbao peeking out into a clump of thorny thorns. 3 relatively sturdy pines formed a circle, and there were many thorny shrubs growing in the circle. Thursel Lang would never look into it when he saw it. Kind of looking for something. Manbao squatted there and watched for a long time, and finally pointed to the inside and said, 4th brother, there is Poria in it. Thursday Lang stared at it for a long time and asked, is it true, Why didn't I see it? It said that my eyes are better than yours. After a little thought on Thursday, Lang thought it was right, so he put down the basket, picked up the hoe, and said, I'll hoe some of these annoying bushes first, you can let me go. Man Bao let him go to the side of the pine tree, feeling a little tired in his legs, so he simply sat down and rested. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 285. With his back to her, Shuyo Lang cut off the branches of the thorns with a hoe, then carefully pulled them out and threw them aside before hoeing the roots of the thorns. He didn't hoe up the thorns either, so he broke the hoe and pulled it aside to make it easier for people to get in and out. Man Bao took the opportunity to put the plants in his hand to keek, then yawned and looked around. There are a lot of small animals in the mountains. She also saw a relatively beautiful pheasant fluttering its wings and landing not far away. When she noticed her gaze, she cooed and fluttered its wings and flew up the tree, but the chicken was nowhere to be seen. Shadowed. Chu Hulang turned around and saw the pheasant that disappeared, and said, Don't think about it, except for brother Zhou, no one in our village can hunt pheasants. Didn't the third brother hit you before? That's when the blind cat met the dead mouse, Shiro said while working hard. At that time, the eldest brother was going to catch the pheasant and pounced on it. As soon as the pheasant flew, it flew directly over our heads, and the second brother was I gave it a stick and swept its wings, and then it fell in front of the third brother, and the third brother lifted his foot and trampled it to death. Man Bao. Look, apart from that time, where else could our family be able to hunt pheasants? Man Bao sighed, it seems that our family has no relationship with pheasants. That's not true. When he was younger, he was very faithful, but it was the uncle who had fate. But Thursday Lang was also proud. He smiled and said, but our family has a relationship with bird egg. Thursday Lang climbs trees and digs out bird nests, but he is a famous bird king in the village. Lang Qing made a way out on Thursday, clapped his hands and said with relief, Okay, let's see, where is Poria? The 3 pine trees are not so small that there is a relatively spacious open space around them, and there is only 1 pine tree every 10 steps. Man Bao was small, and as soon as Gila got up from the ground, he drilled in. Shiro followed behind her as for where the weeds and vines in her hands went, there's no telling, it must have been thrown away. Man Bao walked in and began to pluck leaves from under the roots of the pine tree to find Poria. The fallen leaves here are thicker than other places, maybe because there are thorns blocking it, or it may be because the leaves are mixed with those thorns. Because Keek's scan was in front of him, Man Bao almost found an accurate one. This time, the exposed Poria was not small. Thursday Lang was very happy to see it. He squatted down and picked up the fallen leaves. He flicked to the side and found that it went around half of the pine tree. Zhou Hulang was so happy that he smiled and said, if the old Jia family knew that we found so many Poria cocos from the mountains, they would be so annoyed that their intestines would turn green, and maybe they would even die of anger, ha 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 ha. Man Bao looked around nervously and whispered, Fourth brother, keep your voice down, don't attract anyone. Everyone is eating dinner at home now, who is coming? No, at this time, everyone has eaten dinner early, so everyone should come out to work again, right? It was only now that Thursday Lang looked up at the sky. He suddenly woke up and said, it's over, the sky is about to get dark, let's hurry up. Thursday Lang stretched out his hand to grab the hoe not far behind him, but as a result, his hand seemed to be pressing on something, and he felt a little familiar to the touch. Man Bao also saw it, and didn't bother to stand up, so he simply crawled over. The 2 of them followed the leaves and pushed them to the bottom of another pine tree. Sure enough, they found another piece of tuckahoe there. Thursday Lang turned his head to look at the last pine tree and climbed over to find it. After a while, he pushed aside a fallen leaf and showed Man Bao his results. Man Bao's eyes sparkled, Keek, you didn't say there are so many. Keek, the host will always find it. Coco paused for a moment and said, "Host, collect more of this piece of soil." Manbao said there was no problem, then looked at Shiro. Thursday Lang was covering his mouth with his dirty hands, laughing silently, tears streaming from the corners of his eyes. Manbao was silent for a while, then climbed up and wiped his tears with her dirty little hands, comforting, "Fourth brother, don't be too happy, we are taking revenge." Thursday Lang shook his shoulders and laughed enough, then he let out a long breath, wiped the tears from his laughter, and said, "It's because I'm taking revenge, that's why I'm so happy." Looking at this piece of tuckahoe, Shuyo Lang rolled up his sleeves ambitiously and said, "I'm going to dig them all up. Manbao, you go out and wait for the fourth brother." Manbao said there was no problem and climbed out, but he was not far away, just beside a pine tree. Shiro felt that his buttocks and waist didn't hurt anymore. He spat 2 mouthfuls. He waved his hoe and was about to shovel it down. Halfway through the swing, he realized that something was wrong, and with a little force, he began to dig down. Sure enough, this piece of poria was different from the ones they dug before. It was very shallow. He just dug down and dug out a piece. After going down about 3 feet, he saw the bottom where it was entangled with the roots of the pine tree. Thursalang was very happy, waving his hoe and digging loudly. Manbao looked at it and felt that it was a lot of effort, so he simply commanded outside. Shizuolang also listened to her words. She could dig whatever she wanted, and a piece of it was dug out in no time. Manbao climbed in and carefully pulled out the loose tuckahoe with his hands behind him, collecting a little soil by the way. By the time they dug everything out and put them in their backpacks, it was almost dark. When Shuolang was backfilling the soil, he was a little sloppy, burying all the soil back, and did not put dead leaves on top to cover it up. He took a look at the sky and knew that the family was going to be in a hurry. He didn't care about being tired, so he hurriedly picked up the basket, picked up the hoe, held Manbao and went down the mountain. Fortunately, they did not walk in depth, but walked sideways, and soon reached the bottom of the mountain. Only then did they follow the foot of the mountain back to the intersection where they entered the mountain, and saw Zhou Dalin leading 3 younger brothers with hoes and aggressively approaching, and saw the dirty Thursday Lang holding the dirty Manbao, the brothers who came running for meals. Zhou Dalin frowned and asked, "Did you meet the Jia brothers? This suit seems to be played with mud by himself, not like a fight." Thursday Lang immediately said, "No, I'm not stupid, with Manbao, we're on this side, we didn't go there." Zhou Dalin's face looked better now, and he asked, "Why are you carrying Manbao so late, what if you scare the child?" Usually when it gets dark, the village is reluctant to let the children run out. What if they are scared or hit by some ghost? So children usually go home before dark. Thursday Lang motioned them to look at the basket and smiled, "Brother, you must have no idea how many good things we found." On Tuesday, Lang had already gone up to take a look, lifted the top layer of leaves and looked inside, his eyes flickering slightly. He glanced approvingly at Thursday Lang, "Good job. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 286. On Tuesday, Lang took the backpack directly from Lang on Thursday, and weighed it on his back. The smile on his face could no longer be concealed, it must be at least 20 pounds. Since Tuesday Lang has done a lot of small business, he has a lot of experience in estimating the weight. In addition, he made the basket by himself, so he knows how many kilograms it is. Therefore, everyone trusts his estimates. Even Zhou Dalin and Wednesday Lang couldn't hide the joy on their faces, and now they didn't mind that Thursday Lang was delayed on the mountain for so long. One took the hoe in his hand, and the other carried Manbao and strode home. If they came across so many poria, no matter how dark it was, they would have to dig it out and take it home to feel at ease. When we returned to the entrance of the village, the light of the sky was about to disappear, but it was still slightly bright. At this time, everyone came back from the field and prepared to go to sleep. But there are also people who dislike the hot weather and are unwilling to go into the house to sleep, but stay at the door or under the trees in the village to brag and chat with people. Seeing the Joe brothers carrying hose and carrying a basket back from the outside, they couldn't help but ask, "What are you doing here? Oh, this is full of treasures, why is it so dirty?" Of course, Shu Lang was not stupid enough to tell them to go to the mountains to dig for tuckahoe, so as soon as his eyes rolled, the lie blurted out, "Let's go to boil water for the rice fields," and we went to plant the fields full of treasures. Everyone laughed happily. There is nothing to ask about boiling water for the rice fields. At this time, everyone will boil water for the rice fields, but everyone thinks that manbao is very funny to plant in the fields, so they all make fun, and some people want to hug manbao. Come down and ask. As a result, Wednesday Lang walked forward with his head sullen, and disappeared in front of him with manbao after a while. The joking person can't help being a little embarrassed, and Tuesday Lang said in a roundabout way, "My mother is in a hurry, the third child will take her back to wash first, and you can come to my house to play when you have time." As for the basket on Joe Lang's back, most people are not interested. Everyone knows that the Zhou family grows vegetables in Zioan, and if there is no vegetables in the basket, it is the wild mushrooms they found in the mountains. But there were also people who were very interested and took 2 steps forward to see, "Tuesday, did your brothers go up the mountain to find something good? It's better not to show him on Tuesday, otherwise everything will come out the next day." Fortunately, under the leaves were the straw mushrooms that Shai Lang and Manbao were looking for. Because the sky was dark, the villagers who lifted the leaves couldn't see them clearly, but the straw mushrooms were still recognizable. Then I looked at the size of the basket again, and couldn't help but be surprised. "Have you found so many straw mushrooms?" As soon as the sound came out, someone immediately stepped forward to watch. "Tisk, Tuesday, you guys are really good enough, this is going to make a fortune, this thing is very expensive to sell in the county." On Tuesday, Lang hid, "Haha, it's okay, it's okay." Thursday Lang walked ahead, turned around and called, "Second brother, hurry up, I haven't had dinner yet." The villagers who wanted to continue watching and asking were embarrassed to pull Jojo again, and watched the Joe brothers go away enviously. It didn't rain yesterday, where did they find so many straw mushrooms? People have the ability. Speaking of which, the old Joe family seems to be up again. Tisk, it's too late for you to say this. I knew it when they built a house last year. If they didn't have money, how could their family build such a big brick house? They've even hit the bed. It's also because they have a lot of family members and work quickly. Don't say anything else, wait for the wheat harvest in 2 days. Look at your family. There are 3 or 4 people in your family, and a dozen or so people go to the ground together. Some of the villagers said with envy, "They have harvested 3 or 4 mu of wheat, but your family may not be able to harvest 1 mu. Yes, every time I harvest wheat with his family, I feel uncomfortable. They change places after a while. As for us, from morning to night, we may not be able to cut a piece of land. So it's better to have more children. You have to be able to stand still when you are born." The topic gradually became crooked, and no one talked about the wild mushrooms that Tuesday Lang carried back, but everyone had such an impression. On Tuesday, Lang came home with the back basket, and sorted out the things in the back basket with the other brothers. The good straw mushrooms were put aside, and they were brought to the city tomorrow to sell. The bad ones were put on the other side. Xiao Qian was on the spot. I sorted it out and gave Manbao and the others 2 eggs to cook and eat together. The poria were placed on the ground, and the soil was peeled off and put aside to dry. On Tuesday, Lang decided to bring 3 or 4 yuan to the county pharmacy for sale tomorrow. He could bring 3 or 4 yuan a day, and he could carry it for several days. Bringing too much is dangerous. It is dangerous when you bring it, and it is also dangerous to bring money back, so this kind of thing still has to be tricky. Old Zhutu and Qianxi sat at the threshold to watch them tidy up. The wrinkles on their faces were like a multi-petal chrysanthemum. Just by estimating the income of Tuckahoe, old Zhutu felt more confident in getting through this winter. Manbao washed up and ran out. As soon as he came out, he smelled xiang, and immediately ran up and sat on the stool to wait. Because it was dark and the room was very dark, Lao Zhutu was reluctant to light the oil lamp, so she and Thursday ate directly in the yard. There is a moon in the sky, so I can see bowls and dishes. Thurselro muttered a little stingy, and then he buried his head and started to eat. The old Zhutu sat on the threshold and said condescendingly, "Manbao, this kind of thing about going into the mountains to find things will be handed over to your fourth brother and the others in the future. Find something as valuable as Tuckahoe, teach it to your fourth brother and let them go into the mountains to find it." Manbao said while eating, "Father, Tuckahoe is hard to find, just rely on the fourth brother and they are hard to find. If I'm not busy, I'll follow into the mountains." She thought it was fun to go into the mountains, and she could collect more plants she had never seen before. Old Zhutu didn't think that the girl would be more powerful than the fourth child in the mountains. He thought that this was an excuse for her to play, and he was about to train her when he saw Shiro raised his head and nodded fiercely, "Father, this Tuckahoe is too hard to find." Now, today's Poria was found by Manbao. If it weren't for her, we probably wouldn't find anything today. The old Zhutu was a little stuck, and after a while, he said, "Really Manbao found it?" "Really, especially this last piece, you don't know how deep it is. If Manbao said that there were Tuckahoe in it, I wouldn't have believed it." Shiro Lang vividly talked about how Manbao found that piece of Tuckahoe. The Zhou family listened with relish, and Thursday Lang took the opportunity to put forward his theory of the wood immortal, and then looked at his father and mother. "Father, mother, do you think what I said is right? Manbao is the reincarnation of the wood immortal." Old Zhutu hurriedly looked at his daughter-in-law. Of course, he had to ask Qianxi, who has been begging for immortals. Qian often worships Lord Tianzun, and of course he is faithful, so after a little thought, he said, "When I have time, I will go up the mountain and ask the Taoist priest." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 287. The family nodded in agreement, and even Manbao thought that he should ask the Taoist priest, and she said, "Mother, when I go with you, Xiu, I haven't worshipped Lord Tianzun for a long time." Qianxi smiled, okay, you should go to worship Lord Tianzun. You always cried and cried when you were young. It's better after you worship Lord Tianzun. You have a destiny with Taoism." After speaking and having a full meal, everyone dispersed. Thursel Lang was excited, and now he felt more than just waist pain and butt pain, but pain all over his body, so as soon as he put down the table and chopsticks, he supported his waist and went back to the house with Mr. Fang. Manbao followed behind his buttocks, stood at the door and looked in, and said, "Fourth brother, you have to be obedient to wipe the medicinal wine, and I will come to see you when it is done tomorrow." Thursday Lang waved weakly, and he felt more pain now. As soon as Manbao returned to her room, she closed the door, then lay on the bed and sunk her consciousness into the system. She wasn't sleepy yet. She planned to listen to the orthopedic course again, and ask the teacher a few questions by the way. Try it on the fourth brother. But after entering the system, she discovered that the system space was a little different. In addition to the disappearance of the 3 plants, the soil inside is still piled up, and Keek has put labels on it, such as Poria number 1 soil, Poria number 2 soil, Straw mushroom number 1 soil. Manbao looked up curiously and asked, Keek, why don't you give these to the encyclopedia? She remembered that the soils included were directly transferred to the encyclopedia and would not stay in the system for a long time. Host, the anniversary of the founding of the Interstellar Alliance is approaching. Recently, there are many meetings in the Alliance. The main system and the system in number 10 are jointly signed with the Interstellar Alliance to apply to open more system functions and give more respect and rights to the artificial intelligence system. So I suggest that the host can wait a little longer. When he said this, Keek did not block the main system, but subconsciously temporarily cut off the connection with the encyclopedia. These systems are all made by humans, but because they have existed for a long time, they have some very simple autonomous consciousness, so they can be sent out to perform such tasks. But they cannot be separated from the main system, and although the main system has a higher self-awareness, the original program is still closer to human beings, and it is also under the control of the Alliance. But that doesn't mean they won't fight for their own interests. To fight for their interests is to fight for the interests of the hosts behind them. Of course, Manbeo still couldn't understand such a complicated matter, so Keek directly said to her while shielding the encyclopedia, if the proposal of the main system is passed, the transaction between the host and the encyclopedia will be more detailed. For example, after the first inclusion, if the researchers in the encyclopedia have used up the included materials and want to include the materials again, they can issue a credit task to the host, and the host can choose to accept or reject it. Seeing that Manbeo was still a little ignorant, Keek moved the soil in the system and said, for example, these soils, as far as I know, the research of Poria is not going well. In addition to the extra reward of 10,000 points, they should give your points have not been settled yet, and the entry has not been edited. At this time they will definitely need more soil. When the host provides them with these materials, it will not be free. Manbao's eyes brightened, there are still points. That's right. Keek also laughed. Moreover, in addition to our proposal, there are other scientific research institutions that want to intervene and share these research resources. If their proposal is passed, then a forum will be established to acquire these research resources. There is competition. The price will fluctuate, and the host can earn more points from it. Manbao asked, can the encyclopedia agree? If other people in the village discussed with her father how to assign work to her brothers, her father would definitely be furious, and it wasn't their son, so why should her brothers listen to them? Keek was silent for a moment before he grasped Ching Manbeo's logic, and said, of course, because the encyclopedia has always been independent, it is directly connected to the research institutions of several universities, and the researchers are all people in the university laboratory. The things here are very complicated. Keek didn't say anything, just told Manbao, our proposal has a high probability to pass, so host, these things don't have to be included in the encyclopedia in a hurry. Although Manbao didn't know what a forum was, she could hear from Keek's tone that it was very good for her, so she readily agreed. Only then did Keek release the shield again and let Manbao enter the teaching room. Manbao asked curiously, is the system brother who proposed this proposal very powerful? It's the elder sister of the system, Keek said, although our system has no gender distinction, it sets itself as a woman, and I think she would prefer you to call her elder sister of the system. Its serial number is 2, and it is an elder. Already. Hey, Keek, what's your serial number? Keek, 0531. It almost forgot itself, since Manbao gave it a name. Although there are many hosts, each host has not given it a name, and it will not accept the name they randomly choose. After all, its parents are the main system, and it does not want to accept other than the number given by the main system. The name. But in the face of Ruan Mengmeng, Manbao, who was only 3 years old, what could he do? And she didn't pick the name casually, but she finally decided it after 5 days of negotiation with it. Well, Coco admits, he agreed at the time because he was so annoyed. Manbao is no longer a 3-year-old baby. She realized the number as soon as she heard the number. Yeah, so you are the 531st son. Keek, you're right in saying that. The second sister must be very powerful, right? Yes, her host is also very powerful, so she has the ability to make this proposal. What they have discovered in recent years is very important to the alliance. Manbao immediately called, "What about me, what about me?" Keek, the host will know by looking at his own entry and clicking. If the appearance of the same thing arouses huge social repercussions, many people will definitely go back to the source, so just look at the click to know. Keek said, "I have seen the internal data. The average hit rate of the second host is 178,669,561. Well, the data is still changing." Manbao widened his eyes. "Billion. Yes, it's a billion." Manbao called up her entry data and looked at the largest click entry above, which was the click of Azalea. There were a total of 89,654 clicks. She always felt that her click rate was quite high. After all, 100 clicks can get you 1 point. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 288. Seeing Manbao's shocked look, Keek comforted her. "It's okay, you are still young, host." Manbao calculated the gap between herself and host number 2, and was hit hard. She hesitated and asked, "Keek, do you have any younger siblings?" Keek reacted to what she was saying, and said incredulously, "Yes, there are currently 808 subsystems under the main system." "Are we the least points?" Coco paused and said, "No." Manbao breathed a sigh of relief and became happy. "Keek, don't worry, when I grow up and can go wherever I want, I will dig a lot of plants you haven't seen before, and I will catch a lot of plants you haven't seen before. Animals I've seen." Coco responded with a smile. What Keek didn't say is that although their group is not the least, it is also the bottom. The internal ranking of their system is calculated based on the balance points of the system, and Keek is born at a disadvantage. Because he came to this time and space by accident, in order to be able to contact the main system and open up this channel, it paid a great price. At the beginning, it has been in negative growth, and it has started to earn some points in the past 2 years. It seems a bit miserable to look at, but from another angle, its host is working hard to earn points and will not compete with it. As far as it knows, the brother who is currently ranked last is very miserable, and the points are negative. It is because its host buys a lot of things from the mall, which has caused a shock in the real world. Now not only is its host in a critical situation, but even the system was punished by the main system for maliciously disrupting reality, and now the points are negative. If it fails to accumulate points back to a positive number before the end of its term, the main system will not only not recycle it, but will activate a self-destruction device to destroy it. This is also one of the reasons why Keek decided to choose a host as the master after he discovered that he was living in a different time and space. As long as they recognize the host and save the source program in the depths of their chip, they can't destroy it before the natural death of the human in order to protect the human who has recognized the host. Keek looked at the host of the short Dunzi and encouraged her. "Yes, you are still young, so the most important thing is to learn enough knowledge. When you can go where you want to go, you can earn a lot of points." "We have a lot of time," Keek said. Manbao nodded fiercely, and stopped talking about this matter, but called out the eyes of the teaching room and clicked on orthopedics fundamentals. Last time the teacher stood on the podium again. He looked at Manbao and continued to lecture with a slight smile. But Manbao knew that he didn't watch her, because it was a video, not like her, he was syncing his consciousness in real time. She can't contact the second person through the system. Of course, if the forum that Keek said can be successfully established, then she can. However, although it was a video, she still listened very carefully, and then recorded the questions that occurred during the lecture. After the class was over, she could write her questions on the class essay that jumped out. According to Keek, these questions will be uploaded to the encyclopedia, and then uploaded to the teacher's mailbox through the encyclopedia, and the teacher will answer these questions at that time. Of course, this model is not only aimed at the hosts who bought the teaching room like Man Bao, but also includes citizens in the entire alliance. As long as they listen to the lectures in the encyclopedia, they have the right to ask relevant questions in the books. Man Bao took out his notes, sat in the chair seriously, and listened to the teacher's lecture with his head raised. After he finished speaking, Man Bao described Shiro's injury today again, and wrote it down in the class essay along with the questions he had during the lecture. By the way, I flipped through the question she asked yesterday, and sure enough, it had already been answered above. The problem with Man Bao Fa is that the text is different, and the other party sends a video. Of course, Man Bao prefers watching videos over text, so he read it with relish, and wrote down a few very important points he said. Man Bao was busy for a long time, remembered that he had not endorsed, so he brought the textbook into the space, opened the textbook and read it twice, then covered the book, consciously exited the system, and directly closed his eyes and memorized it. After reciting it back and forth twice, Man Bao realized that she knew it, and she was getting more and more sleepy, so she simply fell asleep according to her inner thoughts. I slept a little this night, and the next day, MRSGN came over to dig her up. Even if you want to go up the mountain in the future, don't come back so late. Look, can't you get up today? Man Bao closed his eyes and nodded, deciding that he should come back earlier today. However, this plan was cancelled again in the afternoon. Man Bao, who was running around in the mountains and dug up several pieces of tuckahoe, returned home with Zhou Lang and Wu Lang in the dark. That's right, this time there is an extra Friday, an assistant specially dispatched by Lao Zhutu. Today, it seems that this assistant is still very useful, because there are more Poria cocos found today than yesterday. The old Zhutu secretly converted all the Poria on the ground into money, and became happy. Fourth, why don't you let the sixth go up the mountain with you tomorrow? Okay, Thursday Lang agreed without even thinking about it, and of course he would be happy when more younger brothers went up the mountain to help with the work. Father, can I not go to the vegetables tomorrow? No, cutting vegetables is in the morning, and going up the mountain is in the afternoon. Does cutting vegetables affect your going up the mountain? It affected it. Why didn't it affect it? It's too tiring to cut vegetables in the morning, and I don't have so much energy in the afternoon. You can take a nap at noon, and I won't stop you at that time. Seeing that he was still trying to cheat, Lao Zhutu pointed at him and said, think about Man Bao, she goes to school every morning and comes back after school. I have to go up the mountain with them. Thursday Lang turned his head to look at Man Bao, and saw Man Bao glanced at him proudly, and showed off to Lao Zhutu, Dad, I even took my homework up the mountain to do it today, and I didn't waste time at all. Old Zhou Yu praised her, our Man Bao is really amazing. Chu Yulang lowered his head with a sigh. When they were digging for tuckahoe, she was lying on the stool and doing her homework. She really didn't waste any time, couldn't it be amazing? For her, he had to carry a stool up to her. Forget it, let the sixth carry it tomorrow, and the fifth should continue to carry the basket. Thinking about it, Shu Yulang supported his waist and accepted his fate. Okay, I'll cut vegetables tomorrow. When old Zhutu was satisfied, he turned his head and said to Zhou 11, tomorrow you go with the fourth child, stare at him, and don't let him be lazy. Zhou 11 responded with a smile. Only then did the old Zhutu say to the others, boss, the third, you should go and see the compost pile tomorrow. You should water it and dig it out for ventilation. Zhou Dalan and Wednesday Lang responded. Old people, tomorrow you will bring them to find all the sickles in the house, sharpen them, and we will open the sickles in 2 days, he added. the rest of the house must be tidy up. Everyone responded in unison. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 289. Another day, Man Bao held Shiro's hand and walked in the back with a wave, while Wu and Saturday walked in front with their things on their backs. Not far from the foot of Zhongshan Mountain, when everyone was about to go up the mountain, Keek, who had been silent, suddenly said, "Host, there are people in the grass." Man Bao paused and asked, "Who is it? Are they trying to scare us?" Keek knew what she was talking about, like she hid at the door waiting for Bai Shanbao to enter, and suddenly jumped out to startle him. But it scanned it again and judged, it's not like, because their faces are a bit fierce, and they are holding the hoe tightly in their hands, in an attacking posture. The main thing is, I haven't seen them, they are not Qilai village people. It has seen all the people in Qilai village, and as long as they have seen it, it will not be ignorant. When Man Bao heard this, he immediately grabbed Shiro Lang and walked away. Shiro turned his head and asked her, "What's wrong?" Wu and Saturday Lang, who were walking in front, were also waiting for the two of them to choose a place to go up the mountain, so they couldn't help but stop and look back. Man Bao pointed to a mountain on the other side and said, "Fourth brother, let's go there." Just as Thursday Lang was about to ask questions, Man Bao blinked at him and blinked again. Thursday Lang also blinked at her, then reached out to scratch her eyelids, and asked, "Did it get in the dust?" Man Bao. "Come on, fourth brother will give you a blow." After saying that, he lowered his head and blew her eyelids. Man Bao /U0026 Keek. When Wu Lang and Saturday Lang heard this, they also turned around and walked back, asking around her, "Are you okay? Just rub it with your hands." Keek, foreign objects in the eyes cannot be rubbed with your hands. But the three brothers of the Zhou family obviously couldn't hear it, and Saturday Lang wanted to contribute his sleeves, "Wipe it with your sleeves." Thursday Lang glanced at his dirty sleeves, reached out and patted his hand, it's all right, come on, the fourth brother walks behind your back. Really, you can be blinded by sand and dust when you walk." After saying that, he bent down and carried Man Bao on his back, turned in one direction and left. Friday Lang and Saturday Lang were stunned for a moment, and quickly caught up, "Fourth brother." With a hum sound, Shuyu Lang cut off their words, and said idly, "When you go up the mountain in a while, you all follow closely, and be careful when you get scattered and get caught by wild wolves." Friday Lang and Saturday Lang followed them away in confusion. Two Jia brothers hiding in the grass. When they were all gone, the two of them couldn't help standing up from the grass. Jia Li spat in the direction the four left, and asked, "Brother, just let them go. Otherwise, people are walking on the road, why do you take people? But they must have dug the holes in our mountain. They don't necessarily have to dig a lot of wild mushrooms from us. Those poor ghosts in Qilai village don't know the goods, but we do know that straw mushrooms are in the county town. The lowest price is 20 cents a pound, and the good ones sell for 30 cents. Catch the traitor and catch the pair, catch the thief and get the dirty, have you seen it?" Jia Sheng was also very unwilling, but there was nothing he could do. He spat in the direction they were leaving, and said, "I think they are lucky today. Brother, otherwise let's follow and see how they find wild mushrooms." Jia Li was very dissatisfied and said angrily, "How come we can't find it after searching in the mountains for so long, but they look for one exactly?" Jia Sheng frowned slightly, "No, it hasn't rained in the past few days, how could there be wild fungi on the mountain?" The more he said it, the more he felt that something was wrong. "And the wild mushrooms are picked, just pull them out lightly. How about digging such a big hole?" The brothers looked at each other, No wonder they always felt that something was wrong. It turned out to be wrong here. Jia Sheng's eyes flashed slightly, and he clenched the hoe in his hand and said, "Let's go, let's follow." Jolly immediately followed. The two of them did not hide, and they followed the road openly and chasing people. The road is facing the sky, and everyone can walk if they are hiding. It will be a problem if they are seen. Then the Jia brothers, who were carrying their hoes forward in an upright manner, walked for a long time without chasing after the Zhou brothers. Jia Sheng couldn't help frowning and looked around. Where did they go? In the front. Didn't the little girl point to the mountain in front? But there is no obstruction in front, and you can see the foot of the mountain at a glance. There is no one there. Jia Sheng doesn't think they can walk so fast with a child. He frowned, looked back at the winding road behind him, and immediately walked back. They are probably behind. Let's go back and look for them. At this time, Thursday Lang had already run to the circuit with Manbao on his back, and Wu and Saturday Lang also spread their feet and ran very fast. They were halfway there, and when they turned the corner, Shuyu Lang took them to hide behind a bush, and squatted for a long time. Seeing that they were almost impatient, they saw the Jia brothers walking quickly with their hoes, and they moved immediately. "Don't dare to move." Judging from the experience of Thura as a gangster when he was 15 years old, these two came to ambush them. He weighed the armed forces of both sides, and resolutely gave up resistance, and when they turned the corner and walked away, he immediately ran away with Manbao on his back. Humph, heroes don't suffer from immediate losses, but they dug Poria for 3 days on the mountain of their old Jia's house. The four brothers and sisters ran back without a word, and ran across the mountains until they reached the edge of the fields in Qilai village. On the road, they could see scattered villagers in the fields, and the three of them slowed down. Chu Yulang took a breath, put Manbao down, and let her go by herself. He glanced back at the empty road, grinned openly, and waved his hand. "Come on, let's walk back slowly, and we'll see which mountain has more pine trees later, and we'll go up and look for it." When he got here, he was not afraid that the Jia brothers would catch up. What can they do? Thursday Lang laughed humbly. In fact, he still hoped that they would catch up. When it comes to fighting, their Zhou brothers are not cowardly. Thursday Lang looked back again, but still didn't see the Jia brothers. He was disappointed to look back, and then two people rushed out from the corner at the end. Thursday Lang couldn't help but bring a bright smile on his face. He turned around and waved at them without hesitation. Jia Sheng was so angry that he slammed his hoe hard on the ground and watched him walk away. "Brother, we just let them go and don't go after them." What are you doing? Do you want to fight with the Zhou brothers, or with Qilai village?" Jia Sheng spat bitterly, but he was too unlucky. Originally, he planned to hold them down and beat them up after they climbed the mountains and saw what they were doing. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 290. When outsiders asked, they all insisted that the Zhou brothers maliciously cut down their pine trees and trampled all the small pine trees they planted. No way, the other party can't say the excuse of digging wild mushrooms on their mountain, because in the popular sense, this kind of wild thing, no matter where it grows on the mountain, anyone who sees it can pick it. Unless it's yours. I really want to say that everything on the mountain is my own, not to mention in Qilai village. Even in Dali village, I feel a little sad. Jia Sheng still wants to hang out in the village, but he doesn't want to be too domineering for the time being. After finding an excuse, even if Shu Yulang and the others were beaten, they would have been beaten in vain, but now they are chasing after them. They have neither climbed your mountain nor met you, so if they fight again, it will be unreasonable. Maybe it was the Zhou brothers who came to the door and beat them in the end. So Jia Sheng could only grit his teeth at the Thursday Lang brothers, trying to kill them with his eyes. But he knew that after today, it would be difficult to find fault with Thursday Lang and the others. Jia Sheng turned and led Jia Li up the mountain, and they returned to the 3 pine trees. The place was very different from when Shiro left before, because the 3 trees were dug with potholes, and there was a huge hole, and the roots of the pine trees had been dug off a lot. This was dug by Jia Sheng and Jia Li. The day before yesterday, they occasionally heard people say that the Zhou brothers went up the mountain to find a lot of wild mushrooms, and they carried a whole basket. Most of the people who spoke were just envious, and regretfully said that they occasionally went up to the mountain to look for it. After all, this thing is quite delicious, and if you find it, it counts as an extra dish at home, right? But it was different for the Jia brothers. They knew that before, the Zhou brothers often went to Zhongshan to find wild mushrooms, which were far from the 2 villages. Whether they were gathering firewood, digging wild vegetables, or looking for mushrooms, they couldn't find them there for the time being. That is to say, people who can hunt in the village will go to that mountain. The villagers in Qilai village didn't know how much those mushrooms were worth, but those who frequented the county knew. Jia Li once met a woman in Beimaguan town who brought 7 or 8 caddies of wild mushrooms to the county every day. Those wild mushrooms were divided into several categories, ranging from 20 to 30. Sell $1 or $200. That income is comparable to their burning charcoal in winter. So Jolly seriously went up the mountain to look for wild mushrooms, but this thing is very strange, and you can't find it if you want to find it. His best record was finding 8 tails. It was only 8 tails, and he was too lazy to take it to the county seat, and in the big set, everyone would not spend money on wild mushrooms. So he ate at home. It was because of jealousy that the 2 brothers were so angry about the Zhou brothers looking for mushrooms in the mountains. They felt that the reason they couldn't find them was because they had picked them. However, whether it is Jia Li or Jia Sheng, they have all picked mushrooms before. They know that most mushrooms can be picked directly by hand. If a small part cannot be picked up, just poke the soil with a stick and they will come out. But the 3 trees were dug so badly and so deeply, obviously they were not looking for mushrooms. This place was discovered by chance after they went up the mountain again after hearing rumors. At that time, there were thorns that were chopped down next to it, and the soil in the middle was new, and it looked like it had just been turned over, so the 2 brothers were curious and dug the ground again. Of course, there is nothing in it. They didn't think much about it at first, just thought it was Thursalang and the others who found a lot of mushrooms here, but I'll look at it later. Jia Sheng squatted on the ground, squeezed a handful of fresh soil on the ground, and squinted. No, mushrooms don't need to be turned so deep, right? Jia Li's eyes lit up and asked, did they dig up treasures in the mountains of our house? Jia Sheng glanced at him and said, what kind of treasure could there be in this mountain? Considering that Zhou Lang went to the county town every day recently, Jia Sheng said, it must still be eaten. I don't know what it is. You can go to the city tomorrow and take a look and see what Zhou Lang sells. Jia Li was a little reluctant. Brother, tomorrow my family will open a sickle to harvest wheat, how can I have time? The most important thing is that even if they see it, they can't catch the Zhou brothers, and they can't do anything about them. No, there are not many existing methods to catch them, because this is a wild thing growing in the ground, basically whoever finds it belongs to whoever. They can also arrogantly forbid the Zhou brothers to go up the mountain to find things. Unfortunately, Jia Sheng's family will also harvest wheat tomorrow. When the effort was not equal to the gain, obviously no one wanted to work hard, so after the 2 brothers talked about it for a while, they went back unhappy, and did not mention the matter of going to the county seat to stare at Zhou Yulang. And Thursday Lang, who was about to return to the village, simply led Man Bao into a mountain at the entrance of the village. There are a lot of books on this mountain. There are a lot of people who know and don't know. Of course there are pine trees, but they are not as large as the mountains. The pine trees here are mostly scattered, and there are various trees and flowers between the pine trees. And the low shrubs are the majority, and the vines are growing indiscriminately, making it a little more difficult to walk in. On Thursday, Lang led the way with Wu on the front, and on Saturday, Lang led Manbao in the back. The four brothers and sisters spent a lot of effort to stroll around the small half of the mountain, and with the help of Keek, they found a pine tree with poria cocos. Thursalang meticulously wrote down the location of the pine tree and decided to take a look again this time next year. Since Manbao said that poria is also a fungus, it should still grow here next year. This is his experience of finding mushrooms for many years. By the time the three of them dug out this poria tree, it was almost dark. Thursday Lang felt that the income today was far less than in the past, so he scolded the Jia brothers, thinking that if they hadn't made trouble, they wouldn't have found only one tree. Manbao said, "Fourth brother, you can't beat them. Anyway, we are about to turn over the mountains, so don't go to the mountains in the future. What about next year? Secretly go there next year." When Thursday Lang heard it, he laughed. He also thought it was more refreshing, especially when he had to let the other party know after digging things up. Wu Wulang felt that fourth brother was too hateful, so he told him, "Fourth brother, be careful when you go out in the future, and be careful with sacks." "They dare," Shu Yulang hummed, "if they dare to put my sack on, they will die." "Big brother, they are not vegetarians. If they put it on once, they will be beaten to death." Hearing this, Friday Lang was not too worried anymore. Manbao was accustomed to it, and followed everyone to the village laughing and laughing. When passing by his own mountain, he saw many people chopping bamboo on it.